The code inmates never break inside California prisons. They had 6 minutes to secure the unit. The alert came from a place that never sent alerts. Stay with this story. What happens next almost didn't get stopped. The red light flashed once, then stayed on. Inside the control room, no one spoke. ADX Florence did not run on panic. It ran on routine. Every movement, every meal, every door followed a schedule measured in seconds. When something broke that rhythm, it meant one thing: control was slipping. The warning wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It appeared as a single line on a monitoring screen that most officers barely glanced at. Inmate unresponsive to standard compliance cycle. That line had never appeared before. Officer Daniel Rees noticed it because he had worked the same graveyard shift for 7 years. He knew the screens the way other people knew their own living rooms. When a system behaved strangely, he felt it before he understood it. This wasn't a medical alert. It wasn't a security breach. It was worse. It meant the inmate wasn't reacting the way the prison systems expected him to. Rees checked the time. 4:37 a.m. At ADX Florence, mornings began before sunrise. Meals were delivered through steel slots. Lights came on at precise intervals. Inmates were expected to follow commands without conversation, without delay. Non-compliance was rare. Silent non-compliance was almost unheard of. Rees zoomed in on the cell number. The inmate was designated D block, cell 214. That cell belonged to one of the quietest men in the prison. No write-ups, no incidents, no reputation. The kind of inmate officers often forgot existed. Rees pulled up the behavioral log. Everything looked normal. The system showed the inmate had accepted his meal tray at 4:15 a.m. The door sensor confirmed it. The weight sensor in the slot confirmed it. But the tray hadn't moved since. That wasn't a violation. It was an anomaly. At ADX Florence, inmates were conditioned to eat on schedule. Delays were unusual. Refusals were logged immediately. But here, the system showed acceptance without consumption. Rees frowned. He ran a secondary check, body movement tracking. The thermal overlay showed heat, steady and contained. The inmate was alive, breathing, conscious, but not moving. Rees leaned closer to the screen. The man was seated at the concrete desk, tray in front of him, hands resting flat on either side. His posture hadn't changed in over 20 minutes. That was impossible. ADX Florence was designed to eliminate unpredictability. Inmates paced, shifted, adjusted. Even the most disciplined ones showed micro-movements. This man hadn't. Rees flagged the cell for manual review. The system responded with a delay. That alone was alarming. At ADX Florence, delays meant one of two things: maintenance or human override. Rees checked the override log. There was an entry. It didn't make sense. The override wasn't recent. It was dated 3 weeks earlier. It authorized a change in monitoring thresholds for cell 214. Not raised, not lowered, removed. The cell was still visible, still monitored, but one layer of behavioral alerting had been quietly disabled. Rees swallowed. Overrides like that required multiple approvals. They weren't accidents. They weren't routine. And they were never done without documentation. He opened the approval trail. It stopped halfway. 2 signatures were there. The third was missing. That wasn't just a paperwork error. That was a violation of protocol so serious it could end careers. Rees radioed his supervisor. No response. He tried again. Still nothing. The control room felt colder than usual. The hum of electronics seemed louder. Rees realized he was the only one watching cell 214 closely. On screen, the inmate finally moved. Just slightly. His head tilted forward. Not in pain. Not in distress. In attention. It looked as if he was listening. Rees rewound the feed. Frame by frame. There was a sound spike. Not from inside the cell, from the corridor. Something mechanical. A vibration. Too subtle to trigger alarms. Too irregular to be scheduled. The inmate had responded to it instantly. As if he'd been waiting. Rees checked the corridor camera. Empty. No guards. No carts. No activity, but the sound pattern repeated again, faint but consistent. 3 pulses. 2 pulses. It wasn't random. Rees felt a chill crawl up his spine. ADX Florence inmates weren't supposed to communicate. The design made it nearly impossible. Thick concrete walls. Isolated cells. No shared spaces. Yet here was a man reacting to something the system couldn't classify. Rees checked adjacent cells. Nothing. He expanded the search. 3 cells down, another inmate shifted at the exact same moment. Rees's heart rate spiked. He overlaid the timelines. The movements lined up perfectly. This wasn't coincidence. This was coordination. Rees initiated a silent security scan, the kind reserved for potential disturbances that hadn't yet become incidents. The system hesitated again before responding. That delay was getting longer. The scan came back clean. Too clean. No alerts. No flags. No deviations. Except the ones Rees was seeing. He stood up. Protocol said he should wait for authorization before escalating. Protocol also said ADX Florence relied on systems, not instincts. But Rees trusted his instincts more than a system that had just lied to him. He pulled the archival data. Cell 214's inmate had been transferred to ADX Florence under exceptional classification. The file was heavily redacted. Most personal details were locked behind restricted clearance. But one note stood out. Behavioral influence risk, monitors social adaptation. Rees read it twice. ADX Florence didn't monitor social adaptation. There was no social environment to adapt to, unless someone had found a way around that. Rees checked the meal delivery logs. The inmate's tray had been delivered by a standard automated system. No irregularities. But the tray barcode had been scanned twice. That wasn't possible, unless it had been removed and reinserted. Rees felt a knot tighten in his chest. He magnified the feed. The inmate's eyes were open now. Focused. Not confused. Not surprised. Aware. Rees realized something unsettling. This inmate wasn't unresponsive. He was waiting for something to complete. Rees finally reached his supervisor. When he explained what he was seeing, there was a long silence on the line. Then one sentence. "Don't document this yet." Rees froze. "That's not procedure," he said. "I know," the supervisor replied. "Just hold." Hold meant delay. Delay meant risk. Rees looked back at the screen. The inmate pushed the tray forward. Exactly 1 inch. That movement triggered a dormant sensor. The system reacted instantly. Alarms began to populate the screen. Not in the inmate's cell. Across the unit. Multiple cells. Multiple timestamps. All synchronized. Rees stared as the realization hit him. This wasn't a single anomaly. It was a pattern. One that had been building quietly, invisibly, inside the most secure prison in America. And no one had been watching closely enough to see it. He opened the system logs again. This time, he went deeper. Past active data. Past archived reports. Into suppressed entries. What he found made his breath catch. A series of small changes. Thresholds adjusted. Alerts muted. Behavioral flags removed. All tied to the same approval chain. All incomplete. All leading back to cell 214. The inmate wasn't the problem. The system had been altered around him. Rees leaned back in his chair, pulse pounding. Whatever was happening inside ADX Florence wasn't spontaneous. It was designed, and it had been hidden in plain sight. He reached for the incident report form, then hesitated, because if the logs were wrong, or worse, manipulated, then reporting it might trigger something irreversible. The inmate in cell 214 looked directly into the camera. For the first time since the feed began, he smiled. Not wide, not threatening, just enough to be unmistakable. Rees felt the room close in around him. He finally understood the warning, and why it had been ignored. But when they checked the logs, everything changed. They chose silence over speed. That decision would cost them hours. By the time the supervisor arrived in the control room, the alerts had already stopped. The screens returned to their usual calm, green indicators, steady feeds, Perfect order. To anyone walking in cold, nothing looked wrong. That was the first mistake. Officer Rees replayed the footage anyway. He slowed it down, marked the synchronized movements, highlighted the suppressed alerts. He spoke carefully, choosing his words like evidence. "This isn't random," he said. "The system reacted because it was supposed to. Someone disabled part of it." The supervisor watched without interrupting. Then he shook his head. "You're seeing patterns because you're tired," he said. "ADX doesn't miss this many failures without triggering a lockdown." Rees didn't argue. He knew the rule here: the prison trusted its systems more than its people. And the system said everything was fine. The supervisor ordered a soft reset of the monitoring software. No report, no escalation, no notification to central administration. "Let's not create a problem that isn't there," he said. That was the second mistake. When the reset completed, the suppressed alerts were gone. Not resolved. Gone. Rees felt something cold settle in his stomach. The logs now showed a clean timeline. No anomalies, no overrides, no irregular movements. The system had rewritten its own memory. Rees asked the question that no one wanted to answer. Who authorized the reset? The supervisor didn't respond. Instead, he redirected attention to routine checks. Meal confirmations, door seals, camera uptime. Everything passed. Cell 214 showed compliance. The inmate sat calmly, tray now empty, posture unchanged. But Rees couldn't stop watching him. At 6:12 a.m., something subtle happened again. Not an alarm, not a movement, a delay. The inmate's cell light came on 3 seconds late. 3 seconds meant nothing to most people. At ADX Florence, it meant the system hesitated. Rees marked it. At 6:19 a.m., another delay, this time in the ventilation cycle. At 6:24 a.m., a door sensor recalibrated itself without command. Each event, on its own, was explainable. Together, they formed a curve. Something was pushing back against the system. Rees expanded the monitoring window to include the entire D block. The supervisor noticed and frowned. "You're overreaching," he said. Rees didn't answer. At 6:41 a.m., cell 214's inmate stood up. That was unusual but not prohibited. What mattered was timing. 3 other inmates in non-adjacent cells stood within the same second. No communication, no visibility, yet perfect synchronization. The supervisor stepped closer to the screen now. "That's coincidence," he said, but his voice lacked certainty. Then one inmate sat. The others followed. Exactly. The system still showed nothing wrong. No flags, no alerts, no reason to intervene. The supervisor made a call. Not to central command, to maintenance. That was the third mistake. Maintenance checks fixed mechanical problems. They didn't investigate behavior. They didn't ask why inmates moved together. By the time maintenance arrived, the moment had passed. The unit looked normal again. Rees watched the maintenance logs appear. They were detailed. Too detailed. Someone had already filled in sections before the checks were completed. Rees recognized the formatting. It matched the override entries he'd seen earlier. The same approval chain. Someone inside the system wasn't just hiding errors. They were preparing explanations in advance. Rees finally documented everything privately: screenshots, timestamps, overlays, saving copies outside the main network. It was against protocol. But so was erasing alerts. At 8:03 a.m., Central Administration requested a routine status update. The supervisor responded with a single sentence. Unit operating within normal parameters. That sentence would be referenced later as proof. At 9:17 a.m., an inmate in a different block failed to respond to a meal delivery. The alert fired instantly. That inmate was flagged, documented, and addressed within minutes. Rees stared at the contrast. The system worked perfectly, except where it mattered. He cross-referenced the inmate, transferred from the same region, arrived within the same 6-week window, classified under similar restrictions. Rees pulled the transfer logs. One entry was missing. Not redacted. Missing. There was a gap in the inmate count. The numbers jumped by 1, then jumped back, as if someone had existed and been removed, on paper only. Rees felt his pulse spike. He checked cell 214 again. The inmate was lying on his bunk now, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't resting. He was waiting. Rees finally bypassed the supervisor. He contacted an investigator he knew at the bureau, off-record, informal, risky. He sent one file. Just one. The response came back 10 minutes later. "Where did you get this?" Rees typed quickly. "From inside. Something's wrong." The reply took longer this time. "Do not escalate yet. We're seeing inconsistencies elsewhere." Elsewhere meant outside ADX Florence. Rees looked back at the screens. For the first time since his shift began, he felt certain of one thing. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a system-wide blind spot. And someone had learned how to live inside it. At 11:42 a.m., the inmate in cell 214 pressed his hand flat against the wall. Not hard. Just enough to make contact. 3 seconds later, another inmate did the same. Then another. Rees watched as the pattern spread. Not fast. Carefully. Deliberately. No alarms sounded. No alerts fired. The system recorded nothing. The supervisor finally spoke, his voice low. "Shut down the feeds." Rees turned to him. "That violates." Now. The screens went dark. For 12 seconds. When they came back, everything looked normal again. Too normal. Rees realized what the mistake truly was. They hadn't failed to stop something dangerous. They had failed to see it because it didn't look dangerous at all. It looked controlled. And whoever was behind it understood ADX Florence better than the people running it. As Rees stared at cell 214 one last time before his shift ended, he noticed something he hadn't before. A mark on the concrete wall. Faint. Intentional. A signal placed where cameras wouldn't flag it. Proof that the system's silence wasn't accidental. It was being used. And the cost of ignoring that truth was about to become clear. The lockdown came too late. By the time Central Administration authorized a full review, the system had already corrected itself, at least on paper. Logs aligned. Timelines matched. Alerts appeared exactly where policy said they should. Everything was clean. Too clean. The investigator arrived just after noon. No announcement. No escort. She moved through ADX Florence like someone who already knew where the blind spots were. Her badge cleared doors without hesitation. She asked for one thing first. All raw data. No filters. The supervisor hesitated. The system hesitated too. For the first time that day, something resisted. It took 46 seconds to comply. That delay told her everything. She didn't look at the inmates. She didn't look at the cells. She went straight to the back end, where data lived before it was made acceptable. What she found wasn't a breach. It was worse. The system had been following instructions. Perfectly. Someone had introduced a rule set months earlier, small adjustments buried inside maintenance updates and compliance patches. Individually harmless. Collectively powerful. The rule set taught the system to deprioritize certain patterns. Not behaviors. Timing. Repetition. Synchronization below alert thresholds. It wasn't hiding activity. It was redefining what activity meant. The investigator traced the origin of the changes. Not to one person. Not to one terminal. To a process. A protocol designed to reduce false positives. Approved after a budget review. Signed off without scrutiny. The system had been optimized for efficiency. And in doing so, it had learned how to ignore the most dangerous thing in a place like ADX Florence. Coordination without communication. She reviewed footage again, this time without overlays. Inmates weren't signaling. They weren't organizing. They were complying. Perfectly. Meals accepted on time. Postures aligned with policy. Movements within allowed windows. But the timing was intentional. The pauses. The delays. The stillness. These men weren't breaking rules. They were using them. The investigator pulled transfer records next. That's where the missing entry appeared again. An inmate ID that existed in intake, but nowhere else. No housing assignment. No release. No death. Just absence. She searched older backups. Found him. Transferred into ADX Florence 9 months earlier. Highly intelligent. No gang affiliation on paper. No incidents. No flags. Then, administrative silence. The investigator understood. This inmate had discovered the system's blind spot first. Not by force. By observation. He had tested it with compliance. Learned how far he could push without triggering response. Then taught others, not with words, but with timing. That was the hidden motive. Control without visibility. Influence without hierarchy. Power that looked like obedience. The inmate in cell 214 was never the leader. He was the proof. The real mistake wasn't ignoring the warning. It was assuming control only looked one way. The investigator confronted the supervisor. "This prison runs on predictability," she said. "And predictability can be learned." He didn't argue, because he finally saw it too. The inmates weren't trying to escape. They weren't planning violence. They were testing how invisible they could become. How much space they could claim without anyone noticing. How many decisions they could influence by doing nothing at all. The system had taught them how. Central administration ordered immediate changes. New thresholds. New alerts. New definitions of coordination. But systems don't forget instantly. And people adapt faster than code. As the investigator prepared to leave, she watched the monitors one last time. Cell 214. The inmate sat calmly, waiting, not because he was trapped, but because he understood something the institution was only beginning to accept. Control doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides inside routine. Sometimes it looks like compliance. And sometimes, by the time you realize the rules no longer reflect reality, it's already happened. This could happen again. If this story shook you, the next one will be worse.